did, and everybody should be doing it. This is what is happening in the country, and we think about why people are eliminated from the health, why the surge of momentum is being so incredibly real.
And it makes me so furious that they tried to destroy this woman because she did the right thing and because she just embarrassed them by how.
Yeah, it's off.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're gonna wait another 3 minutes to see if we can get wait for some more folks to join. In the meantime, if you could please share your name, your pronouns, and what you know about the right to counsel in the chat directly below. Thank you. Hi, Linda. Looks like we're getting some good amount of people joining. I just want to send a reminder out to let everybody know to remember to put your microphone on mute to help minimize any background noise. Thank you.
Recordatorios de tener su micrófono en mudo para que no se oiga ningún nada en el fondo. Por favor, póngase en mudo.
Just a reminder as well, we are recording this session, so if you're not comfortable being recorded, you are welcome to keep your camera off.
Y también les recordamos que esta sesión va a ser grabada, así que si no quieren estar en cámara, por favor, quítense de la cámara.
Michelle, we're at the 6:03 mark.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Michelle Ashton. I'm a leader with the organizing committee for the Take Back Our Homes campaign. Welcome to our second part of the Right to Counsel political education event. Before we get started, I would like to pass it over to our interpreter to introduce themselves and to explain how to use the interpretation. Alejandra?
I'm actually going to do it. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Denise. Good afternoon. My name is Denise. And junto con Alejandra, along with Alejandra, we are going to be your interpreters for today. So just a few language justice reminders, algunos recordatorios de justicia del lenguaje. Please speak clearly and at a moderate pace. One mic. Please say your name before speaking. If we use gender neutral language, it is on purpose, and please message us if you have any issues. Y algunos recordatorios de justicia del lenguaje, hablar en paso moderado y claramente, un micrófono, diga su nombre antes de hablar y si usamos lenguaje en género neutral es a propósito. Y por favor, déjenos saber por el chat si hay algún problema en el audio. And in a moment, they're going to turn on the interpretation function and you can follow the instructions on the screen. En un momento van a encender la función de interpretación y pueden seguir las instrucciones en la pantalla. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. And you can go ahead and set us as interpreters, please.
Amazing, perfect. You are now interpreters. It started, and everyone, again, just recapping, if you could go follow the instructions that are on the screen and select the language that you want to choose to listen to.
We're all set? Okay. Alrighty, I would like to now take the time to introduce the organizations that are joining us tonight. First, we have us, Take Back Our Homes campaign, started in 2022 in response to the mass and unjust evictions and displacement of our communities. We are building power as poor and working class communities with the belief that housing is a human need, not a commodity. First, we also have Poder in Action joining us. Poder in Action is a Phoenix-based grassroots organization that builds power of people of color and working class communities to disrupt and dismantle systems of oppression and determine a liberated future in Arizona through leadership development, civic advocacy, and community building. Next slide, please. Next, we have Long Beach for a Just Economy, otherwise known as LANE. The Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy is an organizing and advocacy institution committed to economic, environmental, and racial justice. They bridge community and labor power to win policies that improve the lives of working families in Los Angeles and in Long Beach. Lastly, we have Libre joining us from Long Beach as well. Libre is committed to advancing justice in disadvantaged communities through the creation and preservation of affordable housing, renter protections, and community economic development. Our work is driven by their work is driven by their values of shifting power dynamics so that they can put an end to displacement and homelessness and ensure housing as a human right for everyone who calls Long Beach home. Next slide. So we're going to go over a brief overview of what we're going to be covering today. First, Noelle will be performing a song for us. We will hear from Poder in Action. Lane and the director of Libre will also present. Then we will have a little interactive activity. Maisha will speak about the Take Back Our Homes campaign and our fight for the right to counsel. We will then have time for questions, but if you have any questions through the presentation, please drop them in the chat below so that we can get back to you during this portion. And then lastly, we'll enjoy some meditation and sound healing before closing at 7:30 p.m. I want to also share some community guidelines for this workshop. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, so please be respectful. For the sake of time, we ask that folks to drop their questions and comments in the chat. The chat moderator will be capturing all questions and comments that are put in the chat. We also ask that you remember to speak slowly so that the interpreters are able to translate with ease. Next slide.
You've got 3 minutes, Michelle.
Thank you. So for those of you that just might not be too familiar with Zoom, just a real quick overview. This slide is a little bit different from what you'll actually see at the bottom of your screen. I think they've upgraded since then, but nonetheless, some of the features that we're going to go over are the same. Your audio button is going to be in the bottom left-hand corner, the far left. To speak, you're going to want to unmute, and then remember, please, to mute it as soon as you are done speaking so that we can eliminate any background noise and hear everybody clearly. Right next to that is going to be the button for, or the selection for the video. If you're not comfortable again with being recorded, you can shut your video off, or if you just need to do that intermittently, that is where you will select that and it'll just show your name on the screen. If you move over to the center of the bottom of the screen, that's where you'll see chat, and that's where you can enter in any questions for the moderators. And then right next to that is going to be React, and that's if you need to raise your hand to speak, or if you need to send or want to send an emoji, a thumbs up, or a smiley face, a heart. Actually, the raising hand is, I swear Zoom is different on everybody's computer screen. The raising the hand is right next to it. If you go over to the far right, if you should find that you need to leave the meeting, that's where you can go ahead and exit the meeting. Thank you. I'm going to now pass it to Noelle, who's going to open the space with the song. Noelle.
Thank you. Hey, y'all. It's Noelle. My artist name is Legendary Leisure, and I'm on all streaming platforms. I do make Ascension music, and with that, it's just pretty much giving a testimony of a real life lived. Made it through the worst times, my intuition, my flight. Only getting stronger, cause this ain't killed me, eh? Astral body perfecting, feeling like myself today. Attitude on dividends, bread at a bakery. Guess I'll be the baker then. Patty caking like the baker's man. Please, folks, just break it in. Things fall apart, begin again. Just like the moon, creating the flow. Ocean or shoe. If you know, then you know. Be you. Be you. Made it through the worst times, my intuition, my place. Only getting stronger, cause this ain't killed me, eh? Astral body perfecting, feeling like myself today. Attitude on dividends, bread at a bakery. Guess I'll be the baker then. Patty caking like the baker's man. These fall, just break it in. Things fall apart, begin again. Just like the moon, creating the flow. Ocean or shoe. If you know, then you know. You'll do what you do. You'll do what you do. Be you. Be you. Hugging from the wrong side. Is it only me when we're heart to heart? Yeah. Yeah. Translucent soul, human experience. Looking for the rainbow after the rain. Well, who gon' ride with you through the thick and thin? Somebody call you in the thick of it. Somebody wanna chat to know your business. Nod their head like they listening. But can you hear the rustling of my fabric? Can you hear the rustling of my fabric? Won't waste my time saying that I told you so. Rid my soul of judgment a long time ago. I'm just here for justice, one and dine it. Stripes on my back, some friends turn to foes. But can you hear the rustling of my fabric? Can you hear the rustling of my fabric? Blessings, blessings raining on my life. Only align with the divine. Time is a concept of the mind. For humans to quantify. Don't let this moment pass you by. Don't let this moment elude you. Don't fall for the confusion. Add consciousness to the conclusion. Add consciousness to the conclusion. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Noelle. Show Noelle some emoji love with some claps and hearts. That was really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You have an amazing voice. Thank you so much. We're blessed to have you here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Such an amazing way to open up our session. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Isabel. So Isabel Garcia is a Phoenix native. She is a mother and a daughter of Mexican immigrants. She has dedicated her work to community-based health, education, and research projects. Currently, Isabel serves as the community safety strategist with Poder in Action, where she is studying abolitionist theory and trends. Isabel is an amazing powerhouse, and we are super excited to have her here today. I will now pass it on to her to speak more on Poder and the organizing efforts they are doing on the ground. Give it up for Isabel.
Thank you so much, Karina. That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you. And thank you, everyone who's here today joining us. It's so great to see so many people joining us today. So I'm going to jump right in to start talking about the work that we do at Poder in Action. So at Poder in Action, our work is deeply focused on increasing the quality of life for poor and working class, Black, Indigenous, and people of color in Phoenix. And right now, our city is experiencing an array of intersecting crises. The Phoenix Police Department is the deadliest in the country. In the past 10 years, Phoenix police have killed over 150 people, with their most recent fatal shooting happening this past Saturday. On August 10th, Phoenix police killed Imani Jackson. His family has a GoFundMe to raise money for the funeral services and to hire a lawyer. And the link is going to be dropped in the chat. I encourage all of you to please click on the link to learn more about Imani and the incident and to donate to the family to help them get through this tragedy. Phoenix is hot, right? For those of us who live in Phoenix, the extreme heat gets worse and worse every year. The heat is killing more people every year. Over 2,100 people have died from extreme heat between 2012 and 2022 in Maricopa County. Our streets are designed in a way that makes them deadly for pedestrians, and this is especially true for streets in Maryville in West Phoenix. Racist and anti-immigrant sentiment runs rampant in our state legislature. Phoenix and Maricopa County are experiencing one of the worst housing crises in the country, with record-breaking eviction rates and almost no affordable housing. Homelessness has increased 400% since 2014. To the right here in this slide, we have a map of life expectancy in Phoenix, showing that in Maryville, in West Phoenix, so more toward the left, and in South Phoenix toward, the bottom of the map, of the city's poor working class people of color live, residents live on average up to 14 years less than residents in wealthier, wider neighborhoods in North Phoenix and Scottsdale. These communities in West and South Phoenix that are majority Black, brown, poor, and working class are living shorter lives and also facing disproportionate police violence, death from heat, and higher rates of evictions. This is not a coincidence. These crises and issues did not come out of nowhere. They exist because of decisions elected officials in Phoenix and the state of Arizona have made throughout the past several decades. The decisions that elected officials make impact not only our lives today, but have ripple effects for future generations. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So Phoenix became a city with an elected city council in 1881. That's 143 years ago. Currently, the city of Phoenix is split into 8 districts. Each district is represented by 1 council member, and Phoenix also has a mayor who represents the entire city. So Phoenix has a total of 9 people on its city council, 8 council members plus the mayor, all of whom are elected. It's important to know who these 9 people are especially the council member representing your district if you live in Phoenix. For folks who live, work, learn, shop, or do anything, if you do anything in Phoenix, you can find who your council member is with this bit.ly, the bit.ly that's shown on the slide and that also just got dropped in the chat. If you click on the link, it will take you to a website where you can put in an address and it will tell you which district that address is in and who the council member is. So for 143 years, council members have been making decisions about what and who, right? What and who should be prioritized for things like jobs, healthcare, street repair, housing, and even food. Unfortunately, elected officials in Phoenix have been prioritizing the health, comfort, and safety of wealthier, wider communities for as long as Phoenix has existed. And if we go to the next slide. So here in this slide, we have a graph of the way that Phoenix City Council members choose to spend or have chosen to spend the general fund during the 2023-2024 fiscal year. So the general fund is one of three main buckets of money that make up the entire city budget. The general fund consists of tax dollars that people in Phoenix pay, and this includes sales tax, income tax, rental tax, and property tax. This is very important for us to know. Phoenix residents and anyone who shops in Phoenix or goes to a concert in Phoenix, like anything, right? People in Phoenix are paying into the general fund. It is the people's money. It is literally the people's money. And it is unrestricted, meaning that city council can use this money in any way they choose. So here, if we look at the graph, the numbers on the left side of the graph represent millions of dollars. The words along the bottom of the graph are labels for different departments in the city that receive funding. The colored bars on the graph represent how many millions of dollars each department got from the general fund. On the right side of the slide, we have listed some of the departments and the amount of funding they received from the city. The first number, so there's two numbers. The first number is the amount of money they got from the general fund. And the second number is that department's total budget for the year. So remember, we said that the general fund is just one of three main buckets of money for the entire city budget. So the first number is the amount from the general fund, and the second number is the total amount from all sources. So for example, the police department has a total budget of $979 million. That's almost $1 billion, y'all. Okay, the police department has almost $1 billion, of which $741 million came from the general fund. The majority of the money that the Phoenix police are getting is from the general fund, is from taxpayer dollars. So I want to invite y'all to share in the chat. What do you notice from this graph? Right? What do you notice from this graph in terms of what city council prioritizes and values? What does this graph tell you about how the city is prioritizing, right, in the city? So remember that the general fund is funding that the city council can put anywhere they want. This is unrestricted money. And this is what they're prioritizing. It's clear who and what the city cares about and values. This budget demonstrates city council's priorities to give poor and working class people of color more police and less life-affirming resources. I invite you, I'm seeing in the chat right now, yeah, the police is getting the money, housing has very little money, public transit got $0 from the general fund. It blows my mind. So I also, please drop in the chat how this makes you feel. How are you feeling, seeing this? And also, what are your thoughts right now about how it's connected to the issues we face, right? How does this budget connect to the crises we just talked about? The things we need to meet our basic needs to be safe and to thrive are severely underfunded, while the police, who do not solve any of the problems we are facing, right? Police don't solve mental health or substance use crises. Police do not solve unemployment. Police do not solve homelessness, right? They don't solve any of our problems. And actually, they only bring more violence and more problems to our lives. And yet they are getting way too much money. They are getting the most, it feels like the most of our money, right? So now we're gonna pivot a bit from talking about city budgets to talking more specifically about how policing and the housing crisis intersect. Okay, so let's move on. So police are frequently used to disappear people that politicians and the government see as problems rather than as people. And one major place we see this is in the housing crisis in Phoenix. So what role have y'all seen the police play in disappearing people who are impacted by the housing crisis? If y'all want to drop in the chat what you know about how police interact with people who are unhoused, are street-based. Here we also have some examples. So constables and police work together to evict people from their homes. It's a cop who shows up, right, to evict someone, to give that notice. The eviction crisis has led to increased homelessness across the country. Police carry out sweeps of homeless encampments, throwing away personal belongings, IDs, and tents. And we know that this is happening in Phoenix. Police regularly harass, brutalize, and kill unsheltered people without consequence, including Mohammed Muhaimin in 2017, who was killed by the police outside the Maryville Community Center in West Phoenix. The housing crisis exists in large part because of decades of policy decisions by elected officials and the people they hire. Each year, politicians have a choice. They can fund programs and resources that ensure everyone's basic needs are met and that make neighborhoods and the people who live in them healthier, safer, and more stable. Or they can fund programs that use criminalization, incarceration, and violence. And as we saw previously from the graph, it is clear that here in Phoenix, decision makers and policymakers are prioritizing criminalization, incarceration, and violence. Our neighborhoods don't get healthier when police force people from their homes. They don't get more stable when police throw away IDs, tents, and other personal belongings of people who are unsheltered. And they don't get safer when police brutalize, harass, or kill community members who are unhoused. Rather than address the housing crisis at the root, rather than address root causes, politicians use police to try and disappear the people who are being displaced by politicians' failed policy decisions. Can we go to the next slide, please? It can feel really overwhelming and disheartening to see this, but when we organize to build power, we can impact the way that the city budget funds our community. And that's what Poder in Action is doing with our Pueblos budget campaign. So in 2018, Poder in Action began a 4-year process to build a Pueblos budget. The Pueblos budget is a people-first approach to making Phoenix healthier and safer for everyone by investing in the people and communities that have been strategically neglected by decision makers for decades. The Pueblos budget seeks to address the immediate needs of Phoenix residents while also working to transform infrastructure for the long haul. So back in 2018, we knew, and we still know this today, we knew that the Phoenix police budget needed to be redistributed to life-affirming resources, and that we needed, and also that we needed community buy-in to defund the police. And so this led us to conduct hundreds of hours of community-based research and political education on police violence in Phoenix and the city budget. And we also had deep conversations with thousands of people in Phoenix about the police, about safety, and about what they needed in their neighborhoods. Through this extensive research and organizing process that run from 2018 to 2022, we were able to develop the Pueblos budget, which consists of 69 investments that are split into 6 major areas. So those 6 areas are 1, community infrastructure, 2, housing and homelessness, 3, labor, 4, mental health, substance use and well-being, 5, parks and recreation, and 6, youth and families. And so examples of the investments that we have in our Pueblos budget include things like making public transit free for everybody. Wouldn't that be so dope if public transit was free in Phoenix? Also, low barrier cash assistance programs, 24/7 voluntary behavioral health crisis relief centers, repairing busted park equipment and pools, and stipends for Black, Indigenous, and people of color who want to get trained as behavioral health workers. These are just a few examples of the 69 investments in our budget. The Pueblos budget has an estimated cost of $465 million, which is less than half of the annual Phoenix police budget, with not even half of the Phoenix police budget, we could pretty radically transform this city. We see the Pueblos budget as an alternative to the city's police department budget. Our Pueblos budget campaign is organizing and strategizing to redistribute the Phoenix Police Department budget directly into the Pueblos budget. This is an essential component of the campaign. We are defunding the police and investing in people's immediate needs and infrastructure. We must build power and fight to prevent the city from continuing to invest nearly $1 billion a year into policing, and to invest that money into the health and wellness infrastructure of Phoenix. We actually wrote a report about how and why we built the Pueblos budget. For more information on our process and the specifics of the Pueblos budget, you can read our report in the link that's on the slide, and also I believe was just dropped into the chat. So as I mentioned, one of the 6 areas in the Pueblos budget is housing and homelessness, which has 12 investments. One of those investments calls on the city to provide emergency legal services for people facing evictions, right? To honor and support our right to counsel. I'm gonna pass it back to Karina so that we can learn more from other amazing organizations and their efforts to protect our right to counsel in evictions. Thank you all for listening and having me, and I pass it to you, Karina.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isabel. I feel like I learned so much from your presentation, and just the links between the policing and the lack of resources, the lack of investment in community care in Phoenix. And so thank you so much. The work that is doing is so important. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Diana and Andre. And so Diana is joining us from Lane. Diana joined Lane in 2022 as an outreach specialist for the Repower LA campaign. In 2003, Diana then transitioned to a community organizer for the Long Beach for a Just Economy campaign. Prior to Lane, Diana worked as a union grocery worker for 16 years. She graduated from California State University, Northridge, with a bachelor's in English and creative writing in 2013. Welcome, Diana. And then presenting with Diana is Andre Donado, who grew up in Colombia, her country of origin. After moving to the United States, Andre became a student activist at Long Beach City College. This is where Andre found her passion for community organizing, She has led and worked on essential policy campaigns for immigrant and housing rights at all levels of government. She has also challenged oppressive systems like policing and mass incarceration. So please welcome Andre and Diana joining us from Long Beach. I will now pass it over to Diana.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karina. So like Karina mentioned, I work for Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, which is LANE for short. We're an organizing and policy institution committed to economic, environmental, and racial justice. We're based out of Los Angeles, California, but we have one campaign being hyper-focused in Long Beach, California. With that, the branding for that is Long Beach for a Just Economy. We're a progressive policy alliance committed to shifting the balance of power in Long Beach through strategic community, labor, and faith-based partnerships. We mobilize working families of color to engage in the political process, and we fight for social and economic change. Our vision is ultimately to build community power and transform Long Beach into a city where zip codes does not determine your quality of life, a city where workers, renters, and immigrants live with a real agency and dignity. Now, we build collective power in 3 ways. One of those is policy and coalition building. And what that can look like in our campaign is our living wage campaign, our housing campaign that we collaborate with Libre, and you'll hear more about that in a moment, and our immigration justice fund. We also have our grassroots community organizing. Organizers are on the ground, in the field, talking to community and meeting them where they're at. We also
Diana,
have
you
a...
could just speak a tad slower for the interpreters.
Gotcha. Sorry. We also have our leadership development and civic engagement program. What those programs strive to do is to uplift and organize community leaders for them to take action on their own. So we teach them about organizing in the community. We teach them about the ins and outs of the city budget, how city council operates, and just the overall function of their city. We also have our civic engagement program where we hyper-focus on lower propensity voters. Those folks are not getting their voices heard, and it's our mission to make sure that they do get their voices heard. Oh, next slide. Here is an example of some of the big wins that Long Beach for a Just Economy has had in the past. The first one being Measure N, which stood to raise the minimum wage from $10 to $13 for hotel workers here in downtown Long Beach, lessen the workload for housekeepers, and to provide paid sick leave. Imagine not having paid sick leave. Just stop and think about that. If you were to get sick, your loved one to get sick, you weren't able to take time off and get paid for it, what would that do to your financials? So that's what we stood to do, is to help those hotel workers be able to have the wages that they deserve in 2012. I'll move on to Measure WW, which again was a hotel protection. Now would enact common sense protections like providing panic buttons for women in case they were being harassed or sexually abused, or to any housekeeper that, whether they're man or woman. We also have Measure RW. Measure RW is an amendment to Measure N, and it stood to raise the minimum wage to $23 an hour in July of 2024, with an escalator to $29.50 by the time the Olympics comes here in Los Angeles. What we learned during that Measure RW campaign is that workers' rights are renters' rights. We learned that workers are commuting 2 to 3 hours to get to work. Workers are having a $50 a week food budget. They're picking and choosing what meals to eat. And some of them are either facing eviction or on the verge of eviction, and some of them even sleeping in their cars. We know that workers' rights are renters' rights, like I stated, which is why it is very important that we co-anchor the housing justice space alongside Libre. With that, I'll pass it on to Andre so that they can speak a little bit more about the Right to Counsel program we have here in Long Beach, how we got that funded, and what does it look like ahead of us. And I'll pass it to Andre.
Hi everyone, I'm Andre Donado. I am the director at Libre, and Libre as you see, is an organization that is committed to advancing justice in disadvantaged communities through the creation and preservation of affordable housing, renter protections, and economic development. We work alongside with Lane and other organizations as co-anchors of the Housing Justice Coalition. And one of the things that we were able to achieve is the right to counsel in Long Beach. The right to counsel is part of a renter protection package that the Housing Justice Coalition is pushing for. The renter protection.
Andre, could you go just a tad slower? I'm so sorry.
Sure. Renter protections as part of the homelessness prevention package that we are pushing for include the right to counsel and a strong just cause eviction protection ordinance, because right to counsel and just cause eviction protection ordinance are tight. We need to give attorneys the tools to fight eviction cases, and rent stabilization. One of the things that helped Long Beach pass the right to counsel was an incredible level of advocacy that the whole coalition did, not just talking to council members, because we started in 2022 to talk about this homelessness prevention package. We went to every single council member and explained why the right to counsel was so important. One of the things that really helped us pass the right to counsel was the fact that LA County already had established what is called the State House LA program. The State House LA program is a partnership between Los Angeles County, local cities, community organizations such Libre and Lane, and legal service providers, and we all came together to provide resources for the people. There's no right to counsel that is going to work unless there's a community organization letting people know that there's a right to counsel. So when we think about the right to counsel, we also need to think about the implementation of the right to counsel. Through the State House LA program, we have different components of it. One is the outreach. So community organizations do phone banking, text banking. We go door to door to talk to people. And in addition to that, like we also do education events. We do and host Know Your Rights presentations in communities where people are most at risk. We do what is called tenant navigation. So many people come to our doors with tenant problems, not always related to an attorney. Some things we don't need an attorney for, right? An illegal rent increase, we can send a letter to the landlord without precisely need an attorney. So we help, and we call that what is tenant navigation. There's a small piece of the right to counsel that includes rental assistance. And the only reason why we include rental assistance is because sometimes when attorneys go to court, it's cheaper to settle through some sort of rental assistance than to provide all the court process and pay all the attorneys that are needed. So a small piece of rental assistance is used as part of the right to counsel. And of course, legal services. As I mentioned before, not always we need a full representation. We also provide what is called partial representation. So when people go to court and are able to settle or get a good deal, we attorneys will allow that deal, and we will not need all their times, so we can focus on more cases. In Long Beach, since 2020, we have reached over 300,000 people through the right to counsel, thanks to the money that was passed and has been allocated since the program started. We have hosted more than 21 workshops and supported over 9,000 individuals on tenant navigation. There are really awesome stories, of people who, thanks to this program, were able to stay housed and not get into homelessness. Majority, the bad reality is that over 80% of people in Los Angeles County live paycheck to paycheck, and they are one paycheck away of becoming, possibly facing an eviction and therefore becoming homeless. You all have heard the stories of how bad the Los Angeles County problem is around homelessness. So this program is helping alleviate some of that, which is why we put it under the homeless prevention package. In addition to that, it allows people to access to justice. For every landlord that goes to, I think that I'm sorry, I got like a little hot, but I think over 90% of the landlords that go to court have an attorney. Less than 10% of the renters that go to court have an attorney. That is not just. That is not justice. The right to counsel allows people to have fair representation. It gives people a real chance to even win a case or not, but it allows the justice system, I don't know how to call it, but sometimes it's not really just that. It allows the system to work a little more fair. In addition to that, it contributes to the health and well-being of people by decreasing the impacts on the physical and mental health of people. Believe it or not, well, of course you all believe it. Homeless is trauma. It creates a very traumatic situation that truly impacts your mental health. So by working in our right to counsel, we are contributing to a community well-being. Another very strong point that allowed us to pass the right to counsel was the cost-benefit analysis that we did county-wise. In LA County, we are able to save over $250 million just by prevention. In Long Beach, it's a little smaller than Los Angeles County. Well, it's within Los Angeles County. We could potentially save up to $14 million per year just by providing a little bit of right to counsel. And this is not a full, because a full program. Full program will even have a lot more savings. I want to throw you a very disturbing data there. There were over 3,000 evictions in Long Beach in 2022, as we were coming out of the pandemic, where people did not have still a lot of funding, a lot of money. A lot of people were still with, like all the consequences of the pandemic. And super sad that even in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, landlords were evicting people to a rate of almost 300 people per month during the pandemic with all the protections. Thanks to the right to counsel, we are projecting that homelessness will decrease. As a matter of fact, as a latest count show a little bit of the decrease in homelessness, not too much, but just a little bit. But to be honest, the right to counsel, while it will reduce significantly homelessness, right to counsel alone doesn't do it. We need a stronger just cause eviction protections. We need rent stabilization, and we need different and more fair housing, access to affordable housing, which is one of the reasons why right now we're also talking about community land trust, co-ops, and other ways that could support the overall housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everyone, send your little emojis.
That was really great. Thank you to Lane and Libre for sharing the amazing work that you all have done in Long Beach and LA County. Just real quick, my name's Andrea. I'm the community organizer here with the Take Back Our Homes campaign. But we'll move on to the next activity just to kind of reflect on what we just heard from both Diana and Andre. My team will be dropping down a link to a Jamboard. And once you click it, you'll see this page that's on the screen right now. So after hearing from our speakers around their fight and the work that they have done in their community, we wanted to just take some time, like I said, to reflect and answer some questions. So everybody, if you have the link open right now, you can, if you've never used it before, you click the fourth little icon, the sticky note, and it should bring you up to like a little pad. And from there you can type an answer to the question. And from there you just click save and it adds it onto the screen. So we can take 2 minutes right now to answer for this first slide. What are some lessons we can learn from both Lane and Libre on their fight with housing justice, a right to counsel? What are some takeaways that we got? So we'll give folks about 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll move on to the next slide. Right to counsel has to be a legal right. True. And if anyone is having trouble with it, feel free to let us know in the chat.
And if people are having trouble with the Jamboard, feel free to put it in the chat and I can also add it to the Jamboard as well.
Yes. Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, so we can just read some out right now before we go to the next one. So there's tying workers' rights to renters' struggle, like hotel workers being in some cases evicted. What is being done in Phoenix and Arizona? That's really good. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit. Worker right to renters' rights. Yes, that was really powerful. These issues are long-term, but worth it for people. Right to counsel has to be a legal right. Advocacy across the city. Awesome. This is great, y'all. Definitely a lot of wisdom coming from both Diana and Andre. But we can move on to the next one and apply it to our community. So what do you envision for your community in Phoenix? So hearing what the fight looked like in Long Beach, in California, what do you see happening in Phoenix? What do you want for your community? Hearing both of these speakers and also the work that is currently being done with Bullet in Action and Isabel's presentation. And we'll give y'all a couple of minutes there. And then again, if you're just having issues using the Jamboard, you can drop it down at the chat and we can add it for you. Okay, seeing some good things on the chat, more affordable housing, rent caps. So I'll start reading some off here and then we can move on to our next speaker. So some of them say safe, dignified housing for my community, safe housing. We need politicians to care about our needs. Abolishment of landlords, true. How can we help more people here? 9K people getting navigation support is amazing. Dorita saying that funding the police are receiving is the funding only for City of Phoenix. Okay, cool. A lot of great things. It sounds like y'all have a lot of ideas or feelings on what needs to be done in Phoenix. Which is super great hearing from y'all because now we can pass it on after we submit the last sticky note to Miesha, who is one of our Take Back Our Homes community leaders, who will kind of go over some of the work that's been done with the Take Back Our Homes campaign regarding right to counsel and what's being done here in your own community. So I can pass it to Miesha now. Thank y'all for participating in the activity, and if you couldn't get Jamboard, thank you for participating in the chat.
Thank you, Andrea. My name is Miesha Fish. Of course, my pronouns are he, she, and her. I'm with Organized Power in Numbers, and I'm a lead advocate and on the committee for Take Back Our Homes campaign. I love what we're doing with this organization, and what we've already accomplished is amazing as well. And I feel so blessed to be a part of it. Arizona's housing crisis is just that obvious and really, really bad. And so I wanted to give you a little insight in a little bit of my story in regards to right of counsel, because it not only affected me personally, but it is a great motivation for the future and what can be done. I am a person with disabilities, and I'm on a fixed income. I have Social Security disability, and I experienced the last bit of homelessness because of my battery's running low. Because my roommate broke her lease, and I then had no resolve. I didn't know what to do, and I was evicted. A summons came. I was looking for a place to live at that time. By court, I didn't go because I didn't have transportation. I definitely couldn't afford an attorney. I receive an income only one time a month, and so I kid you not, within a few days shy of getting my next check, I literally received. I got a knock at the door, and the sheriff said, "Whatever you can gather in an hour," and I lost everything except what I could carry. So, I get it, and I'm not saying that by having representation, my situation would have had an alternative outcome. It's not what I'm trying to get across to you, but it was a definite guarantee without. Shelter is not a right, it's a necessity. And as you can see by this slide, excuse me, Phoenix is recognized for having a serious problem with landlord and investors raising the rate of rent and the wages not meeting those goals. So, mind you, the race is only between the landlords and the investors. We, as the consumer, we, as the renter, are the ones that are left in the dust. And less than 10 of those facing eviction court are being represented, whereas the majority are investors, landlords, and they have the means in which to provide legal representation. So I'm saying that it can't guarantee a win by us pushing for right of counsel, but it can certainly open the ground for possible mediation, maybe longer time extended in your home, maybe resolve, maybe something that can be worked out so you don't lose your home. These things, I believe, will attribute to a lot of families allowing to stay in their home rather than face homelessness. And I've been out there in 116-degree weather, and I've tried to build my life from nothing, and I was one of the lucky ones. And I have to extend. Last year alone, 600 people, homeless people, lost their lives. Beautiful souls out there lost their lives because of exposure to heat. And that is preventable. Right of counsel won't save everybody, and it won't keep everyone in their home, but it gives us a little more leveling field on what can be done. I implore you, right of counsel is so vital to moving on in this future struggle with homelessness and giving back our voice in court and giving us a say in what we want to build our communities about and the communities we want to be involved in. And by being allowed to stay in our homes is part of that. I appreciate you. That's all really I have to say. I'm going to pass it on to Sebastian now, and have a good night.
Thank you so much, Miesha, for sharing your story. You're such a strong person, and you've been through so much, and so to see you in these spaces, stepping into this, to continue speaking what happened and what is happening to so many people, I'm just always so appreciative of you. So thank you. And yeah, like Miesha has highlighted, right to counsel is not like gonna solve everything, but it is a very important piece of the puzzle. And as Andre mentioned, in Los Angeles, 90% of landlords having an attorney. Here it's 94. Less than 10% of tenants having an attorney over there. Here it's less than 1%. So virtually nobody. And so, if you've ever been to eviction court or observed or had to go through it, it's extremely efficient at forcibly displacing people. And those are majority Black, brown, single mothers, children are some of the most affected and least spoken about demographics in our eviction crisis. And with rents rising faster than ever, we are living the consequences of that. When it comes to our Right to Counsel campaign, we have been pushing hard for a year since we started our research on it, to being really involved in the budget cycle alongside with Poder, to advocate, bring this up. We've spoken to every single, well, not the super Republican council member, but almost every single council member. And right to counsel was the single most advocated for issue, along with making sure that we have more money in affordable housing, and more water in our parks and public spaces. And so we were alongside Poder in the budget cycle. And it's insane that half of the police budget could drastically change our lives here as residents. And so we're making progress, but it's been a long fight. It's going to continue to be a long fight into next budget cycle in January all the way into June. But we have a window, we have an opportunity, and to everyone on this call, I really encourage you to join us or be in community with us or be in collaboration. We're going to be reaching out to you all, because we could get an ordinance passed. We have some council members that are willing to push it along. In fact, they have pushed it along. And through some of our organizing, we have actually secured funds to get a cost benefit analysis done this month. So the cost benefit study is going to be done by Stout. It's like the research people that have done over a dozen of these studies across the nation. So a group called the Phoenix Industrial something, they're philanthropic. They're giving us the funds to get this cost benefit analysis so that we can make the case during next budget cycle about what it would cost, but also all of the savings that Andre was talking about, right? Of what happens when you allow people to continue their lives, right? That saves our community money if community is what you actually care about. And so all of these things are moving. I saw someone ask what's going on with Right to Counsel in Arizona. That's what's going on. That's why we need to continue organizing. We need to continue to build. We're also building a coalition, which is called the Phoenix Right to Counsel Initiative, made up of community organizations like Poder, and also, legal aid groups like Los Abogados and the Hispanic Bar Association, because we need a lot of lawyers when this eventually gets implemented, to some of the, actual service organizations that have to actually contend with all the folks that are becoming unhoused or are in transitional housing. So we're putting all those pieces together, but we absolutely cannot do it alone. And it's absolutely going to take a lot more of us in order to, achieve this one win for workers and renters in Phoenix. Next slide, please. And so I just want to take a step back and kind of rename what we're doing here, right? We know that we're organizing for tenants' rights. So many of us are involved in organizing for our communities in order to better the material conditions of our communities. And that is our primary goal. But also we should understand like the region that we're operating in. And this is sort of our political analysis here with this organization, Organized Power in Numbers. We not only believe change is important because we need to reduce suffering in our communities for our brothers and sisters, but also Arizona and the South, Southeast, Southwest is vital to changing the dynamics, the political dynamics of the country. And what you're seeing is, just a graphic of how business has moved to the South. So that is an economic trend that's been happening since the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Bill Gallegos, who is academic and was part of the Chicano struggle in the early 60s, he wrote a very important paper about the Sunbelt strategy, which basically speaks on the economic capitalist strategy to move industries to the South, which are areas that are historically oppressed and marginalized and did not have the victories that the coasts and the Midwest did in terms of labor and social reform, right? And so as the American influence has weakened with other superpowers coming into play, like in, China, Russia, all of those things, our own areas became a focus, and they did that, right? And so as steel, rubber, all of those industrialized parts of our nation started to dwindle, we're seeing a lot of industries move to the South, and that's why we're seeing growth in the South. Like here in Arizona, it's completely exploded. But
Sebastian, can you speak a little slower?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I was like getting carried away. It's completely exploded, right? But we're also in a context where the political context is regressive, extremely so. And the Republican Party has done everything they can for decades to continue to make it easy for corporations to exploit people at work with right to work laws, for example, and what we're seeing now at home. So, we're in a context where it's illegal to implement rent control. It is literally illegal to do rent control in Arizona because of a law that Republicans put in place back in 1995. So if we're talking about decisions that politicians have made, as Isabel pointed out, that influence our today, we need to understand that the South is a target. And why? Because historically here we have Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, right? And so that is the context. That is the Sun Belt, right? And when we win in the Sun Belt, we win in the country. And so even though it may feel, and it is so difficult, Like it is the task at hand. It is the issue in front of us in our lives to change our reality. Can you go to the next slide, please? And I also wanted to mention that, the communities that have led change in the Southwest and Southeast have been the historically oppressed groups, the nations within this American empire, right? And so, imperialism is the system under which we live. If someone could drop the definition of imperialism in the chat. But here we see some of those historic battles, and just like to remember that is the most marginalized people that have pushed the hardest. And so on the left, you have the Chicano Moratorium, which was known as the National Chicano Moratorium Committee Against the Vietnam War, because they saw the intersects between what was going on in Vietnam and the oppression that they were facing at the time, much like we're seeing those same lines drawn with what's going on in Palestine and how our communities are being brutalized and oppressed by police right now. In the middle, we have, the Apache stronghold, who are continuing to fight for their sovereignty and fight for the religious grounds in Oak Flat, and all the other tribal communities that are at the very front of protecting our lands and nature and their native homes for millennia. And on the right, the Black Panther Party with their breakfast program. That was actually how we even got to free lunch in this country in school. And I literally ate free lunch because I was raised by a single mother, right? So it's these folks and these communities and these fights that have created any of the benefits that we have today. And we have to recognize that they are leading the fight. And also impacted by all of this are poor working class white people too, right? And so we need to come together to ensure that we continue organizing. I see your hand is up, Victor. We're almost at the Q&A. Please save that question. If we can go to the next slide. And so, we are organizing in the South. We have to organize here. We have to continue to push. I'm so happy that so many beautiful organizations across the South are doing this work. Like Isabel, like Diana, like Andre in LA, hats off to you all. You're years ahead of us. And so we have much to learn from you all. And, it is our belief, and I definitely believe this too, that if we can liberate the Sun Belt and win big for social reform in these states, we can change the country, and that therefore we can change how America functions globally. So, what we do every day here and how we show up for each other here matters globally. But, right to counsel, it's like today, and tomorrow is another thing, and we have to be there for all of the fights because it is the same worker that is getting suppressed wages, like in the hotel industry. It's the same worker that's facing eviction. It's the same worker whose kids are going to schools that are extremely underfunded. 49th in the country is Arizona. And so all of these things are tied together. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of ground us in that and our connection to each other and to the struggles. And I'm excited for what we are going to do together. So I'll pass it back to Karina for the Q&A.
Awesome. I'll pass it to Andrea actually for the Q&A.
Thank you. So if you all know how to use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, you can do that. If not, you can put it in the chat and someone on our staff will help you. But I'll take your question first, Victor, since your hand is up right now.
I was just going to say, I read that the Black Panthers were also the first to organize ambulances. So that's why we have ambulances. That's not, I always assumed that was just something government came up with, but it was actually them who started it.
Oh, wow, that's actually amazing. I didn't know that. That's amazing knowledge. If nobody raises their hand, I'm gonna start reading off some of the questions that were given in the chat throughout the presentations. So the first one I think was from Kathy. And Kathy stated, I don't see a change with crime, so what do the police actually use this money to do? So I'll pass that one to Isabel. If you have any knowledge on what the police actually uses that really, really big, almost $1 billion fund bucket for.
Yeah, that is a great question and a very insightful question. I feel like it's more of a comment. Yeah, what are the police doing? We actually have a workshop called it's an introduction to safety without the police where we talk about what the police do and what roles they play and how we can essentially like replace the police, like how else can we address the issues that police right now respond to without police and without violence. To answer your question, at Poder, we do research to determine like what are the police actually doing, and we know that the vast majority of what the police are doing is harassing poor Black and brown working class people, right? Fundamentally, the police exist to uphold white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. The police are a tool of oppression, right? And they use violence. Violence is the main way that they exercise, right, this oppression. And so we also have a workshop on the history of police in this country, roots and roles of police in the United States. It's a very super fast history on the history of police. And fundamentally, we understand that the purpose of the police is to uphold white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. But we invite you, Poder in Action invites you to follow us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, so that you can learn where we're going to have these workshops where we unpack and talk about what police do in our communities, the history of police in this country, and how we can reduce our reliance on police as a community to reduce the power that police has in our neighborhoods. I'll pass it back to Karina.
Oh, you can pass it back to me. Thanks. Another quick question actually that was asked in the chat, that kind of goes along with that is that I think the question was, is the funding that they're receiving only meant for the city of Phoenix?
Yes. So yes, Phoenix Police, the Phoenix Police Department gets funding from the city of Phoenix. So city council, right? Those decision makers that we talked about, those 9 people that serve on the city council here in Phoenix are the ones who have, I guess you can say like control and authority over the police, theoretically. And so, yeah, the funding that we saw that goes to Phoenix Police is only for Phoenix Police. Other cities here in the metro area, like Tempe, Mesa, Avondale, Glendale, they have their own police department. So that $1 billion was only for Phoenix Police.
Thank you. Yeah. And then I think I've heard sometimes that they actually take money from other departments to fund themselves, right?
Well, yeah, the fact that police are getting so much money leaves other departments divested from. Also, the police are the only department in the city that can have ongoing vacancies. Like they currently right now have vacancies in the department, and they're the only department that can have, for example, they are the only department that can have vacancies and still get more money every year. Other departments are not treated that way. If other departments have vacancies or if they're not meeting their goals, they get money taken away, right? But the police department has a lot of protections. Police have so many protections that every year their budget goes up.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I know folks had like questions surrounding that. Dorita, I saw your hand was up. I don't know if you had a question still. I don't see her anymore. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, there was another question. What is
I'm
the
so sorry. Can you hear me? I was trying to unmute myself. I'm so sorry. But she did answer the question. I was wondering that funding that she said for the city of Phoenix is for the police department, is only for the police of Phoenix. So that means that for Gilbert, Tempe, and all the other locations, Scottsdale, they have their own funding budget. It might be even more if we researched it. We only are doing the city of Phoenix. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm just taken away. I cannot believe that all that money is coming in and they are using it like this. This is stupid. Okay, that's it. But she did answer the question. So my other question is, how can I research other cities then, like Tempe and Scottsdale, to see how where their money is going? How do we do that?
Yeah, that is a great question. We're actually Phoenix. We're actually pretty lucky because Phoenix has their city budget process is public. So you do have to, like, our research team, Ben Laughlin, want to give a shout out to Ben, who's on the call right now. Ben has gone to City Hall or wherever you've gone, Ben, in the city to actually read the budget books, to read the budget books to learn how the city budget works. But it's time intensive. It's taken us years to learn the city budget and to understand, but it's not impossible. We can do it. So yeah, if you want to learn how to look up how your city, wherever you're at, how their budget works, let's do it. Let's try to figure it out. But yeah, we're pretty lucky here in Phoenix, despite how awful it is and how the money is being allocated. The process is public for the most part. Not everything is open door. Budget books are available if you go to downtown to look them up. And then yes, thank you, Ben, for jumping in. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the question, Dorita. I know that Isabel said that Poder has an event coming up, so might work if you attend that too. I saw a couple of hands go up. I think it was Victor and I saw another one. Ryan, maybe? Do you all still have questions?
So I do, but I don't know if this pertains to Poder because this is the very first time I was here. I just feel that as an Arizona native in the court of law, because evictions are held in the court of law, you should be able to have counsel, whether that counsel is your own or whatever. And I just faced that system and was denied counsel of my own. And I had to play lawyer and submitted 52 pages to the court myself. And that lawyer wanted nothing to do with me, but that's not right because it's still the court of law. And in the court of law, you're supposed to be able to look your accuser in the eyes and so many things, have counsel. You know what I mean? That was wrong. I just happened to win in a way because the lawyer settled. So I think that alone will make the biggest change because I am an Arizona native. That's all. It wasn't really a question, but that, I really feel that point is important. Anyway, I'm done talking.
No, you're good. Thank you so much for sharing, Ryan. And I think we have an organizing committee, or we can do a one-on-one with you. We can definitely connect to folks if that's ever, well, I hope that never happens to you again, but if you face anything, we can connect you to the right folks. But that'll be all for Q&A. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for the folks who answered. Isabel, thank you for answering. For folks, I believe that we're now moving towards the ending, which will be sound meditation, sound healing by Noeli. So I'll pass it to you.
And we're back. That was great information. I feel well informed, and as much as a lot of it was a little disheartening, I also feel encouraged because the more we know, the more we grow, and we're able to like know where to plug in and help each other to maintain. So that was beautiful. Right now I have our tongue drum, and we're just gonna reset our nervous system. I'm gonna do a full chakra reset. And this is just going to allow you to kind of relate, release, relax, and then sleep well tonight. So you can take audible inhales, audible exhales to get yourself ready to receive. We're going to start with the root chakra. Take a moment to give gratitude for the breath, for the day, for unity, for being divinely guided and protected. Give thanks to our minds, to our spirits, to our bodies, the vehicles that allow us to have this vision and to bring forth our mission. Deep inhale. Coming back to our awareness. Good job, everybody. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Noelle. After talking about so many heavy topics, that was much needed. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Awesome. So going into closing this event, thank you all so much for joining us. We do want you to get involved and feel inspired by all of the things that you learned today. And so my compañera Evelyn will drop in the chat a link to sign up and join us for our summer convening. It is on Saturday, September 7th, and it'll be a day for community to gather and have a social event to learn more about the housing crisis in Arizona and get directly involved. It'll be a day where you can meet all of us, all of the members who are organizing every day to build the world that we want to live in and that we know we deserve. And so I implore you to go ahead and take a minute here to register using the link that is being dropped in the chat. Thank
Folks
you
are gonna
all
need
so much.
permission. There's an issue with the link. It says they need permission to open it.
Okay, let me go ahead and lean on Yareli, if possible, to fix this on the back end really quickly so that we can make sure that folks are able to register while we're on. Just bear with us for a minute here. I also want to take a moment just to thank all of our speakers for putting in amazing work and talking to us about all of the work that they're doing on the ground every single day. Alrighty. So let me just edit it on the background. All right, so the link should be available for everyone to sign up. Sorry about that. Let me know if it is working for folks.
Yes, you can open it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Perfect. All right. We'll give just a minute here to go ahead and register. And if you have any more questions or concerns, you can also email us on the slide here. We have our email, azworkers@powerandnumbers.us. And then you can also join our Facebook group to get updates all the time on our campaign and keep up with us. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you all for joining.
You're welcome. Good night.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.